All right. Didn't expect that many people this early in the morning. Thank you for coming. Thank you for waking up early and being all ready to hear. How many of you are excited about Drupal Starshot? Not everyone. I'm going to ask someone, why are you not excited about Drupal Starshot? Any reasons? All right, let's see. I'm going to ask again after this session and see. I hope that everyone is excited about Drupal Starshot after my session. So my name is Lauri Timmanee. I'm a product lead for the Experience Builder project, which is part of the Drupal Starshot umbrella. I've been part of Drupal community for the last 14 years. I work for Acquia. They are paying me to work on an open source project like the Experience Builder. And in past, I've led other open source projects like the admin team Claro for Drupal core. So I know that many of us have felt this in the past, that Drupal maybe has lost some of its momentum. I know that in the early 2010s, Drupal was, it was thriving. Drupal was the solution that everyone in the market was aspiring for. And today, we know that fewer users are choosing Drupal because compared to other solutions that exist in the market, they feel that it's maybe harder to use. And it's maybe a little bit less exciting than some of those other tools. Some of it is obviously just marketing, but some of it is also how the product works. Well, the reason that we're all here and we are somewhat happy about where we are is because this has been compensated by the fact that our projects have been growing increasingly. That's how we have been able to keep our jobs alive. If you compare the projects that we did 10 years ago, they were probably quite different size than what they are today. And even in 2022, 67% of Drupal agencies who responded to the CXO survey said that their project sizes have been growing in the last year. However, the project sizes are probably not going to continue growing infinitely, so we have to address the problem of how can we get new users into Drupal. And we know that in the 2024 survey, only 35% of companies said that their projects were growing. That problem specifically isn't necessarily something to do with Drupal. It's a general problem in the market. We know that the marketing budgets are being decreased, which doesn't have anything to do with Drupal because that applies to the market outside of Drupal as well. A few years back, companies were investing still 11% of their revenue into marketing, but in the last year, it was only 7.7% of their revenue. So earlier this year, we asked the question, how could we make Drupal accessible to a new generation of users? How could we make more users choose Drupal over some of these competing tools? You may have seen this graph in Driesnote a few years ago, and it's still relevant. Basically, what it's showing is that the experience that new users get with Drupal is not at the level what some of our competitors are able to provide. However, when users gain more experience from Drupal, their impression of Drupal increases. If you ask the expert users, they are quite satisfied with Drupal in general, especially when compared to other solutions. If you asked an expert user on, for example, WordPress, usually their perception is not as rosy. Whereas with Drupal, usually you can actually, it's kind of okay. No, I know that everything is not perfect, but it's all relative. The challenge is that the way that decisions are being usually made is not that how things look in 5 years or 3 years. Users are making decisions based on how it looks like right now. And if it seems hard for me to do right now, they might go with a competitor that is easier for them to get started with. So this is one of the big problems that we need to solve, is how can we make the experience of a new user be equivalent or even better than an expert user going forward. So what are some of the reasons that are preventing us from providing that good experience for those beginner users? So first of all, Drupal has this expectation that as a user who is choosing Drupal, you kind of have to build the CMS yourself. Even the smallest sites that are being built with Drupal often install 30, 50, 100 extensions because in order to get page building to work and other things like that, you actually end up installing quite a few modules. That obviously then adds to that cost, and there's also decisions that need to happen in terms of like which are the right ways to build this. Many agencies have actually invested in their own install profiles to speed this up, to increase their competitiveness. But that obviously then makes it hard for new agencies to enter, because of now we have this market of Drupal agencies that have invested a lot on the platform. And now if you're an agency who don't have that type of solution available for you, then it's very hard for them to enter the market. Drupal core also, for the last decade, has been primarily targeting developers. Even though we've been talking about site builders, the challenge is that Drupal as a platform needs to accommodate the Drupal ecosystem as a platform. If we don't think about the platform of Drupal, things like modules like Search API that are critical to a lot of the sites that we built wouldn't be possible to be built. So the focus of the core team has been split between, okay, how can we make sure that modules like Search API can continue to function in the ecosystem, but then also trying to focus on, okay, how can we actually make this easier for users who are using it through a user interface instead of the APIs for developers. Drupal core is also very slow to change, and it's kind of positive and negative in a way. It's by design it is slow to change, because Drupal core is providing the platform for the whole ecosystem. If Drupal core is going at an insane speed, imagine having to update all of our code and all of our modules constantly to keep up with what Drupal core is doing. So some of the slowness that Drupal core has is by design. So it's a question of, okay, how could we rebuild this platform so that we can keep this stable core and still have products built on top of it that can move at a different pace. And then some of the modules that exist in the Drupal ecosystem, not picking on a specific module, but for example, Search API can be quite difficult to configure. It takes expertise to configure those modules correctly. So the world in which we live is that we have Drupal core on one side, and then we have our live Drupal sites with tens of contributed modules installed there. The difference between what Drupal core provides and what an actual live Drupal site is quite large. Basically we know that no one is just using Drupal core on its own. Everyone installs at least a couple modules on top of it. I've not met a single person who's done that. So what we're now imagining is that there could be a new product which is built on top of Drupal core called Drupal CMS, which is targeting a group that we've specified, which is marketing teams, and we optimize everything that comes in this package for that target market. It can come with additional features. It can come with capabilities that are pre-configured, and for that reason, it is easier for users to adopt this for themselves. It's also easier for us to add solutions in there because we have the core separately, and then we have the Drupal CMS where we can add these product capabilities that are specifically for marketing teams in here. And Drupal core can still focus on all of the complex use cases that might exist outside of this marketing team's use case. So Drupal CMS is a complete CMS solution that is targeting marketing teams, and it's powered by Drupal core. So it's not a fork of Drupal core. It is built on top of Drupal core. So you have all the power that exists in Drupal core, even when you're using Drupal CMS. Drupal core, at the same time, then focuses more on building a framework for building CMSs. Their job and focus is to enable Drupal CMS, but other CMSs as well, or other platforms that might want to build on top of Drupal core. And then we're saying now that Drupal core is targeting R&D teams and IT departments going forward. Earlier this year in Barcelona, Dries said in his keynote that he aspires Drupal CMS to be the gold standard for no-code website building. So we want to kind of retake that position that we had 10 years back, where Drupal was the solution that the market aspired for. So in order to get there, in the Drupal CMS, we've split our focus into 3 epics, or 3 categories of improvements that we need to focus on. The first is the installation experience. So today you need to use command line, and you need to go through quite intricate set of steps in order to get Drupal up and running. So a developer or marketer who just wants to set up Drupal is not going to have a great experience using that, because they've probably never really used a command line. Like, when I see a marketer, if I give them a demo and they see me using command line, they get scared when they see me use command line, let alone them using command line on their own. So that is the first challenge that we need to solve, is that how can you get Drupal up and running without going through those complicated set of steps. Then the second step is to, once you've installed Drupal, how can we actually get them to build their brand and all of the business requirements that they have for their experience within Drupal? Because we know that after you've installed Drupal, you maybe get Olivero, but that's not the experience that most of our customers want, because of most of our customers, they have their own brand which they want to promote using Drupal. So we need to help them get that brand realized in Drupal as easily as possible. And then finally, after they've managed to get their brand into Drupal and implement all of their business requirements, we need to help them to launch their site as easily as possible. So even at the launch step, it should be very straightforward for them to get to the final solution. And obviously, we need to think about all of these three together. Like, the installation that we built needs to be able to be something that you can actually launch. If you just built some sort of trial experience in a corner of the web that you can never launch into the web, it doesn't necessarily provide the right type of value that our customers are looking for, because our customers are looking for building their shopfront in the web. So if it is into some corner of the web, that's not going to help them. So what does the Drupal Starshot then actually contain? First, as I said, it includes Drupal core, because it's built on top of Drupal core. The second capability it's going to have is automatic updates. We need to allow users to update their Drupal sites without having to go on command line. We're looking into both automated updates, but we're also looking into how can we make automatic updates something that you can run manually through the browser, because there could be sort of more advanced updates that need to happen, or updates where you need to get site administrator to validate that the updates are actually not breaking anything, or that and everything continues to work after the updates. So even though we are calling this automatic updates, I think a more accurate name for this would be maybe update manager, because if there's both automatic updates and manual updates where we can make the process easier. Building on top of automatic updates, so both automatic updates and project browser are using Composer behind the scenes. So even though you're using automatic updates in the browser, it's still running Composer behind the scenes, meaning that if you have like a less technical user running automatic updates commands, or running updates using the browser, your Composer installation still remains functional after that. It doesn't just write to the file system without taking into account that you have Composer in there. We're using that same for Project Browser, so that you can browse and install modules and themes using a user interface in Drupal itself. This is very important, because of extensions is one of the key ways in which customers realize value with Drupal. It is where they can find their integration. That's where they can find the modules that provide that are able to meet the business requirements that our customers have using Drupal. And then we are building recipes on top of all of that. So recipes is a concept where we can predefine what steps a site builder, someone clicking through the user interface, would take. We can automate that, and it can create anything that a site builder could create, like an event content type or a view list. All of that is automated so that you can just click one button and it creates those kinds of site builder steps within the site. And then finally, the final capability we're looking into is Experience Builder, which is our project where we are reimagining how the whole site building experience in Drupal looks like in future. In the keynote that Dries gave in DrupalCon Portland, where he announced Drupal Starshot, Dries was making a comparison to Kennedy's moonshot project some decades back. And he said that we are doing this not because it's easy, but because this is important. And he said that in our case, we don't have 8 years. We have to do this in 8 months instead. And that's why we're targeting an initial release before the end of the 2024. What we've done a little bit more planning, it is turning out that we're doing a release in 15th of January, and we have a release candidate version in December. So on Drupal's birthday, Drupal Starshot or Drupal CMS is going to launch next year. And this is not only just a one-time change. This will be the new normal after this initial project. So we've looked into the way that we are leading the project, the way that we are making decisions, so that we can actually continue operating the same way as we did this year, so that we can continue making rapid innovation going forward. And that's where some of our guiding principles are coming from. So the Drupal Starshot has guiding principles where the first guiding principle is that we are prioritizing excellence in user experience. We are transforming the processes in which we built our software to be led by user experience. It's not perfect today. We're still in the process of making changes to be even more led by user experience. Obviously, user experience is a hard skill to find in the community. So we are still finding ways in which we can encourage more user experience designers to be involved. But we've already made significant progress in this. And just the fact that we're saying this out loud has helped, because now the developers who are working on these things, they prioritize user experience, and they're seeking actively for feedback from the user experience designers, and they value the feedback that they bring. Then, second is that we are taking a very pragmatic approach to the way that we are making decisions. We acknowledge that everything is not going to be perfect, but we accept that because we want to prioritize moving fast and getting something in the market quickly. Many of us are willing to accept many of the shortcomings that are in many of the products. So we are trying to prioritize the most important decisions, but then if there's some things where we believe that this is something we can sacrifice, we are willing to let that go. And that's what we hear. That's what I hear when I talk to some of the users that are going with WordPress, for example, today. Many of them are telling that WordPress is no means perfect, and they know that Drupal would come with some important capabilities for them, but they value the user experience. They value some of the capabilities more that they provide, and that's why they choose to go there. And that's the type of mindset that we're taking. We want to prioritize the most important things, and then when there are things that people are willing to sacrifice, then we say, okay, we focus on that later, because that's not a priority for now. So with the pragmatic approach, we are aiming to have very rapid innovation. We are obsessing about the 80% use case because we can get fast to the 80%, and then the last 20% we say, okay, you either accept that the last 20% is missing, or you can build that on your own, because we're still building on top of Drupal core, where you can make changes and you can build on top of it yourself. And one of the superpowers that we have in the Drupal community is the community that we have. And that was one of the guiding principles for us, is to find a way in which we can collaborate as a community. And we've had many contributors and many agencies joining the effort of Drupal Starshot who haven't been contributing before, at least to the strategic focus that we've had for Drupal core in the past. The focus which we have for the project has been split into 2 phases. So we have phase 1, which is to build this new platform for rapid innovation. So that includes looking at our processes and building all the managing structures and things that are needed for us to be able to continue innovating fast going forward. And then our phase 2 after January is to look at everything that we have there, use that platform, and build a simplified site building experience that completely changes how Drupal is going forward. So let's look at some of the things that we have in the phase 1. So I talked about some of the aspects that we've looked in the processes and sort of leadership and sort of values side of things. So now I'm going to talk about some of the capabilities that we're expecting to build in this phase 1. First, so the Drupal CMS comes with some built-in capabilities. It comes with the Drupal core capabilities, like automatic updates, for example. That's planning to go into Drupal core. Project Browser is also going into Drupal core. But we're also looking into capabilities that are actually powered by contributed modules. Gen, ECA, maybe even Coffee or Trash module. Those are just some of the examples that we're looking into having be provided by the Drupal CMS out of the box when you install it. The great thing is that we don't necessarily have to do a lot to get these things done, because they exist in the contrib ecosystem. It's just that if you don't know that they are in there and you don't know what are the right ones to install, then you don't find it. Oftentimes when also people are evaluating the platform, they just look at what exists out of the box. So now all of these things exist there, just when you install Drupal CMS. Then, on top of those built-in capabilities that we have in Drupal CMS, we're building what we call the recipes. And the recipes allow you to then add these additional capabilities using those built-in capabilities. So, for example, there's a recipe to add a blog to your site, or there's a recipe to add CEO tools to your site. So some of these could add a new content type to your site, but some of them could be adding maybe fields to all of your content types that you have in the site, depending on what the recipe is attempting to do. At the moment, we have 14 recipes in progress, and we're planning to have a couple more tracks launched soon. And what is amazing about this, as we can see on the slide, is that each track is owned by a different company. And this is what I mean by having that community collaboration and having people from different agencies joining the forces to build Drupal CMS. And we can see here some of them are about specific content types, but then we have things like AI, for example, which is then going to add things on top of other things that exist in here. These are all the companies that have been involved so far. As of 1 month, there might be more that have joined in the last month. So as you can see, it is not just one company or one small group of people. We have companies coming from all over the globe and joining the Drupal CMS project. If you are interested in building recipes, maybe for your own site, or if you have an idea on a recipe that Drupal CMS should have, you don't have to wait until January, or you don't even have to wait to have a track. You can start building recipes today. So recipes is something that exists in Drupal core. You can build your own recipes for your organization starting today. And you're all ready for Drupal CMS with that. So what does this phase 1 actually mean for someone, a developer who is using Drupal? So the first is that there's more contribution opportunities, especially to the strategic initiatives than there's been before. We've now taken this approach where you don't have to contribute to Drupal core to have a massive impact. You can have an impact on the default experience of Drupal CMS without actually contributing to Drupal core. You can work on the web forms module, or you can work on other modules that are being installed by Drupal CMS. And that's already going to help the efforts that we have in here. We've also opened up for more leadership opportunities. I think I saw statistics that around 8% of all of the leaders are 8% of all leaders that we have now in Drupal in the last 3 months are leaders who've never been a leader for any sort of Drupal project before. And we are planning to have that go to 25% in 2025. You also have to do less repetitive work, like the blog post content type. You don't have to build a blog post content type anymore from scratch every time you need that blog. Drupal CMS provides you those basic content types out of the box, and you should be able to get to the 80% with that. Then you work with your customers to build the last 20% for them. And then finally, Drupal core itself becomes a higher quality platform because we are standardizing on specific solutions that we think are the best for the ecosystem. Some examples of the platform side of things is that we have a search module in Drupal core, which is not necessarily something that we usually recommend for sites to use. And it's competing with the search API from the Contrib ecosystem. So now, with this new mindset of like Drupal core being a platform, we are looking into maybe Drupal core should be involved in making sure that search API is maintained properly going forward, instead of maintaining our own search module that is trying to compete with what exists in the Contrib. Okay, the phase 2 of reimagining the site building experience. So phase 2, obviously the heavy focus of that is going to be on the experience builder, which aims to provide easy page and theme building going forward. The goal for experience builder is to enable developers and site builders who had never used Drupal before to be able to build their entire website using their browser without having to, go through a whole set of shenanigans to do that. Experience Builder is, and I want to highlight that Experience Builder is not just about creating content and pages, because of we are seeing that Experience Builder is playing in the same space as Layout Builder and Paragraphs, but they both have a heavy focus on just the page building and maybe like a layout templating side of things. But Experience Builder is looking beyond that. Once we started looking at Experience Builder, we basically realized that we have to think about the whole experience. We can't just focus on how do you actually put a component on a page. We have to also think about how do you actually build those components. Because if it's difficult to build those components, the page builder is not going to be successful. And that's how the scope of Experience Builder became, that we are focusing on creating content and pages, but also how components are being built in Drupal, as well as how you manage your site design. And where managing the site design comes in is that if you need to be able to build components, the components need to be connected with your site design. So then we realize that, okay, all of this is very much connected, and you can't really work on one of these in an isolation. With an Experience Builder, we are using archetypes to think about what is the different capabilities that we provide. So we've identified that we have 3 groups that are primarily going to be using Experience Builders. So the first one is content creators, second one is front-end developers, and third one is designers. Designers is something that we are going to focus at a later phase. Our primary focus in the beginning is on content creators and front-end developers. So, how would a content creator think about Experience Builder? Something that I've heard from content creators numerous times is, I wish it was like the other tools that I use day to day. Many of our content creators, they don't use Drupal for all of their day. They use Drupal as one of the tools that they have. They maybe have a plethora of different marketing tools and so on. They don't necessarily want to spend time to learn a tool like Drupal. Another anecdote that I've heard is, I wish it was just like Google Docs, or I wish it was like Google Presentations. And that's when it's like, oh, it's a headache, because it's like, it's hard to even see how could what we have today, become like that. So what we've done, and this is related to the process part, is that we've started to change the way that we approach projects in a user-centered design way. On a high level, what it means is that we first try to understand what is it that the user expects to have in the platform, and then we design for that. Then we test our design with the users to get their feedback, like how close is this to what you told us, and then we iterate on that based on both the feedback that we get, as well as the feasibility that we get from the developers on how easy is it to build that. And this is how Experience Builder looks like today. So here's a demo that I recorded earlier today on the actual Experience Builder code base. So we are using the Drupal design system here. I laid out a couple components in here. We can just click over the components, and we can see in the right sidebar that it's providing a form where you can make changes. So I'm changing the design slightly to move the title to the center. to add more margin. We can select more components. And we can see a preview of the components when you're hovering over them so that you know you can expect what you get when you're adding it to the page. When we make changes in the right sidebar, the changes update in the preview live as changes are being made. And the whole center region that we have in here is rendered. It's been built by Drupal itself using single directory components. If we make mistakes, that's normal. We maybe want to try if something works. We can just press Command-Z, and that reverts the changes that you just did. Doesn't look good. If you want to move the components around, you can just drag them. You can just grab them, and that allows you to drag them. You can also use the layers on the left to drag your components. We also have a preview for the mobile, so that if you need to make some changes to how this looks like in mobile. So I noticed that I'm lacking some margin in here, so I need to now fix my containers. So all of these settings that we have on the right sidebar are ones that we have defined in a design system for the content creator to have available in Experience Builder. So you can define the settings that you want to provide to your users, depending on what is the level of flexibility that your design system wants to provide for your users. And now, I've made sure that this looks good on mobile as well, and I'm done with the changes to this page. Okay, so Experience Builder will provide content creators an experience that will feel familiar to them from other tools. We're in particular looking at some more design-focused tools like PowerPoint or Google Slides as an example of, okay, if you've used those kinds of tools, Experience Builder should feel familiar to you. The second archetype that we are focusing on is front-end developers. And what I hear from front-end developers is that, why does it have to be so hard to make the page look like how I want it to? An example could be you have a field in Drupal and you have to make it look like something that the designer created. It can be pretty challenging sometimes to kind of get the field massaged into the format that the designer expects. So sometimes we kind of get into this problem space where designers are then designing something that is easy for us to build in Drupal, and then the designs as a result gets watered down. But with Experience Builder, we are moving into enabling more design system focused thinking. And we've already started this by providing single directory components in Drupal. This is already in Drupal core. But how the Experience Builder will change this landscape is that today we have the idea of storage, and then in the middle we have different display builders like entity display, so that's the view mode in the field UI, or manage displays. Then you have views where you build your display differently. You can use the fields, or you can use the display mode in views as well, but it has its own display builder as well that is not connected to the view modes. And then you have the block layout, which is like a third way in which you can manage how your site looks like, and they all use different kinds of systems under the hood. And then you use templates to actually style them. So now, with Experience Builder, how this will change is that you have the storage, that's your nodes, your fields, the data. Then you have Experience Builder where you build the actual layout. You connect your components into the data. And then the components are the ones that get used in the Experience Builder. So you have the storage and the components that are separated from one another with Experience Builder, whereas before, the templates needed to know what exists in the storage in order for the templates to work. So that way you can build your design systems actually independently from your storage. Experience Builder is also not just limited for single directory components. Experience Builder can also use blocks or layouts that exist in Layout Builder. Potentially, we're looking into that as a strategy for migration in order to build your pages. But single directory components is the primary way of defining components in Experience Builder, and blocks are more like a way to display other things from Drupal in Experience Builder. So what I mean by single directory components are being used by Experience Builder. So you may have seen a single directory component before. So this is the component.yaml file that the single directory component has. We actually use this within the Experience Builder to build out the form. So the form that we see on the right sidebar in here is defined by what is in here. So you don't have to have a separate step for a site builder to go click, what are the fields that we need in here? This is directly just going into the Experience Builder and shows up in there. There's going to be a way to build all of this using the UI in future, but the idea is that if you want to build your component visually, then you define this in the UI. If you want to build your component using code, then you define this in code. So that way you don't have to jump between different interfaces to do your job. I have a similar kind of message for the Experience Builder, is that as a front-end developer, you don't have to wait for Experience Builder to start using single directory components. Single directory components exists already in Drupal core, so you can use it today if you want to. And that also helps you get ready for Experience Builder going forward, because if now you already have your components built using single directory components, and Experience Builder can then use them. Experience Builder also allows you to build templates. It's not just components. So this is where the data storage and mapping components into Experience Builder comes in. So the idea is that today, the display builders are always connected to a specific use case. You can't take data from different sources. Like if you have a template, it's saying that, OK, this is a template for a block, which defines that, OK, the data must be stored in block because of the template says that it's a block. But with Experience Builder, the components are all detached from what the data model is. Then you just use the Experience Builder to do all of these things, like building your content, your templates, even the whole page layout, and you can connect it to any source in which data might exist in Drupal. To imagine how this looks like, I have a video. So here in this use case, I'm building a page template. So that's the managed display of Drupal. So we have connected some fields in here, and I'm connecting now a field to this image property of the component. So we already know, because this is an image, that is only offering us the image field at that point. And then once I select the image field, it's now getting the content of that property from the field of the node. So there's some little bit of a dark magic that is happening where we translate the single directory component properties into something that can be then matched into Drupal fields. So basically the form that you have on the right sidebar, generated out of single directory components, is already using Drupal fields when you're filling in information in there. So Experience Builder provides an easy way for front-end developers to create digital experiences and implement designs that match their brand. So what it means, especially for front-end developers at this point, I would say front-end developers are the ones that benefit from this besides the content creators, is that you get to build design systems in a way that is supported out of the box with Drupal. You get a streamlined developer experience and workflow, so you don't have to worry about Drupal-specific things when you're building your components. You can just build your components separately and then connect them into Drupal. And then, finally, the skills that you need in order to do this become much closer to what the rest of the market has, because if you don't have to know as much about Drupal-specific things in order for you to be able to build a Drupal site, especially as a front-end developer. You can imagine that, so we are using Twig right now, but what I mean by the scale expectancy is that we are also looking into opportunities where we could use, for example, JavaScript components instead of Twig in the single directory components. And that way, a JavaScript developer can also come in Drupal and build components. So one of the most common questions that I hear about Experience Builder is that I'm using Powergraphs or I'm using Layout Builder. What happens to it? What happens to the existing page builders? And we know that Layout Builder and Powergraphs have a very broad adoption at the moment. And that's not, so those tools are not going away anywhere. They're going to remain supported for the foreseeable future and probably even beyond that. Powergraphs, for example, has over 200,000 sites. We're looking into ways in which users who are on these existing solutions can move from the existing solution to Experience Builder. But that's not because of the platform would be going away that they are on. It's just because we want to provide users a way to get to the new experience in order to help them. So if you're happy with your current solution on Powergraphs or Layout Builder, you're fine. You can continue doing that. And then in future, you can consider moving to Experience Builder if that's something that would help you. To summarize, Drupal CMS is being built with 14 recipes, and it's still planned to be released in early 2025. Experience Builder brings then this broader scale of improvements and changes to the site building experience later in 2025. And you can start leveraging many of the concepts of Drupal CMS and Experience Builder use by building recipes and SDCs already today. If you're interested in getting involved, Drupal.org/Starshot has lots of information about opportunities in ways in which you can get involved. We also have links to the sessions that have been recorded about Drupal Starshot in the past. So if you want more information about specific recipes that are being built or Starshot in general, you should be able to find plenty of information from there. So I know that we are kind of running out of time, but we might have time for maybe a few questions.
Hi, thank you for the session. It was really great. I was wondering, do you already know how translations will work with content created with Experience Builder?
We haven't designed the experience as in like the user experience for translating content, but we are looking into both symmetric and asymmetric translations in Experience Builder. So the data model that we've created for Experience Builder is able to support both. So it's largely just a user experience challenge of like how do we actually expose that to the user. And we are planning on looking into translations closer to the stable release of Experience Builder, but it is on the roadmap. So it is definitely something that will be managed. But I don't have a design for how the translation experience looks like right now.
It's built with that in mind, right? That's important.
It's kept in mind, and I think the most important part is that we are going to have support for both asymmetric and symmetric translations. So then regardless of which sort of approach you need for translations, you can use Experience Builder.
Okay, thank you.
In terms of timeline, when do you expect people to be able to start using Experience Builder?
So the timeline-wise, we are planning on a release H1 next year, so around June, July next year. That's the current plan. Obviously, it's a plan, so there's still many battles that need to be won before then. The first release that we have is going to be targeted on not necessarily at the largest enterprise sites ever. Like that, we are acknowledging the fact that in order to build an enterprise-ready site with Experience Builder, it's going to take more time than June, July next year. But because Drupal Starshot is already, it's aiming to go more towards the mid-market of customers, we're aiming at capabilities that are needed for enabling that mid-market. So more like the range of maybe 20 to 50,000 euros. And we believe that Experience Builder will be ready for that market at the time when it gets released.
You just answered my next question. What was the target market?
And what about Drupal core? Is there any plan to make it more lightweight and remove a few modules, move them into contrib, so it's better for maintaining the core?
So the Drupal core is still planning to remove module. I think that was a thing that an initiative that Dries proposed a few years back in the keynote. Obviously, right now the focus is on making sure that Drupal CMS has all the capabilities needed. So we are not really paying a lot of focus on the module removal, but it is theoretically still on the roadmap. It's a matter of just when do we actually have the time to focus on that. And now, especially with the Drupal CMS, there's a sharpened focus on what are the things that we should be removing. So before we were removing modules that just, I guess, were kind of dated and didn't make a lot of sense, but now we have more modules that we want to remove, like search is an example of that, where it's competing with something that exists in the contrib, and then it doesn't make sense to keep it in Drupal core anymore. So it is going to be something that we are going to be working on, but it's hard to give a very specific answer to when do we actually get to focus on that, because I'm expecting that Experience Builder will also require focus from the Drupal core team in order to actually enable it work.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question?
Thinking about the large enterprise sites, that I know that they are more in the future, but in Drupal, I think that an important concept is structured content, right? That sometimes we have nodes or content types that they have specific fields, and they will be important for several reasons. But then it's also important the flexibility, and I think that this is the goal with Experience Builder, if I'm understanding it right, that you will give flexibility to content editors, designers. How would you envision the match of the two concepts? Like, will we be able to configure Experience Builder in a different way for different content types or things like that? Or how do you envision? You know what,
Yeah,
what
yes.
I mean?
So Experience Builder will be supporting both use cases. It will support both the unstructured, build anything that you can dream, and then a structured where you as a developer or designer define that I want only the title, the body, and an image to be possible to be added to the page. Obviously, in the case where you only have those three fields and you don't have anything else there, Experience Builder is less important for them, but Experience Builder can still provide a live preview of what the page will look like once it's created. It will be possible to enable Experience Builder on content type by content type basis, so you don't have to take it as a wholesale, so it's not going to just take over all of your content types. But it is where, if you enable it on a content type, it might change the experience for that specific content type in that case.
Yeah, and do you envision a way of limiting the components that are available for different content types?
Yes, so we are looking into different concepts in which we can allow the site administrator or developers to configure what are the editing capabilities that are provided. We are looking into a concept called edit modes. So you could have a mode for design, and then you could have a mode for content creation, and they could have different sets of settings and components available, and then you can restrict which edit modes are available for different roles. So you could have your designer have more components available for them than then your everyday content creator. And that helps actually both of the personas, because the content creator also don't want to see all the very complex things available for them. They get overwhelmed as well from that.
Thank you.